Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It's 9 o'clock p.m. here on Sunday night, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Glad to be here and just appreciate everybody who's tuning into my shows. I've quite a lot of listeners who tune in, and it's a lot of work keeping up with all of my shows. I've done like almost 1,000 shows, and over the last 3.5 years or so. And I had no idea how long I'd be doing these shows, and I just appreciate everybody who's tuning in. And just talking tonight about child abuse prevention, and this is something that just weighs heavy on me all the time. And this is a survivor and knowing that this is not going away. Children are being abused, and it's an issue that is worldwide, obviously, and it's a real problem. Society really likes to tuck this one under the carpet because it's dealing with family issues. And when it comes to family issues, most people feel that family problems should stay within the family. And family problems that stay within the family generally don't get fixed. And children are abused. They're either maimed and tortured, or they're just psychologically screwed, or they're physically damaged, or they're killed outright due to the fact that people just don't want to get involved. It's tough. It really is. Nobody wants to hear about child abuse. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not something you just can bring up casually. It's a subject that's very, very taboo. It still is. You know why? Because nobody has a clue, about how to really solve this issue. There's a lot of great groups out here doing some great work, and I tell you, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take more and more and more and more people getting involved. And it can't be all about money. Because if it's all about money, then it just becomes just like a governmental agency thing where it's all red tape. It's all tied up. Nobody can do anything. And children are still slipping through the cracks, and they're still dying. Right? This has to be about the human condition and people caring enough about children to work to try to change this situation. Because it's obviously, the situation is that abusers who abuse and kill children, and even if they don't kill them, like in my case, I managed to live through this, they're going to suffer for the rest of their lives. And it shouldn't be about money. It should be a heart issue that we care enough to do something about this. Next Saturday, the 23rd of March, I'm going to have an awesome guest coming on my show, Mr. Tom Scales. He's coming on to talk about the Innocence Revolution. And that's a global day to combat, child sexual abuse. And I'll give you the website information. You can go there and check this out. This is the Innocence Revolution, a global day to end child sexual abuse, and it's www.theinnocencerevolution.net. And everybody, they're just encouraging everybody to get involved all around the world. There's all kinds of people actually who are going to be involved, and this is going to be a global day. So the global day to end child sexual abuse and to fight against it. It's a crime. And they state here, they say right on their website, the Innocence Revolution, a global day to end child sexual abuse, was created to build awareness and launch a global crusade against the crime of child sexual abuse, slated to be held in cities throughout the world on April 14th, 2013. They said, we ask you to join us in this crucial historic event, quote unquote. That's awesome. So, there's a lot of countries involved, a lot of countries. You can go there and check the map to see all the pinpoints of where events will be taking place that are signed, that people are actually signed up and set up. And, if you can't do it, this year, there's ways you can get involved. And it doesn't have to be, it can be whatever it is. It's all going to be for the good of children, of protecting children from child sexual abuse. And this is specifically geared for child sexual abuse. And so I hope you will join us for that show. That's going to be at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. So that's 9 o'clock Pacific Time. 10 o'clock Pacific Time, 11 o'clock Mountain Time, 12 o'clock noon Central Time, and 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So, if you want to tune into that, we'll be on for half an hour just talking about, to hear what Tom has to say about the organization, like the group, and what they're going to be doing, and what the mission is, and his own story, and he's a survivor, and what he does. He does some amazing work. You can go and check out his bio information there. as well as several other people there that are actually that have set this up. And Tom Scales is a co-founder of this this day, this global day to end child sexual abuse, the Innocence Revolution. This is huge. This is absolutely monumentally huge, and I hope that you will tune in to the show on March 23rd. It's going to be a great, really, it's a great privilege to have him come on the show. I'm sure he's busy, and so, but I have a lot of listeners, and I have a lot of people who care about this situation. So spread the word. We're going to have the chat room open, and people will be able to hang out there. And if you have a question that's related to the issue, you can phone in. I don't usually have my chat room open because most of my people that listen to my shows listen at various times, not live. So it's almost all archived listens for me, but that's just because I do most of my shows at really odd times, like whether it's really late at night or really early in the morning. It's about the only times that I can actually do these shows. So this show is going to be on during a time when most people hopefully will be able to catch it. That's Saturday, the 23rd of March. I hope you'll tune in. And that gives everybody a few weeks before this global day happens to end child sexual abuse to get involved maybe, or to think about how you can get involved, or just learn how to protect your own children. Okay? This is a big thing. If you have children, or if you work around children, or and are around a lot of children, look out for them. Learn the signs and symptoms. Learn how to protect children. There's very specific ways that you can minimize the risk of a child becoming a victim of child sexual abuse. And if you know these things, you can be very much aware of who's around these children and what's appropriate. What's appropriate as far as the standards go in every situation, whether it's daycare, whether it's after school programs, whether it's in school, after babysitting situations, leaving your children at a relative's home. You have to know that, the stats are what they are. The larger portion of children are abused actually by somebody that knows the child. And a lot of times it's a family member. That's really sad, but that's true. And that's why people don't want to discuss this stuff. That's why people don't want to bring this out into the open. But you know what? If it's not, it's never going to change. What do you do? What do you do in this situation? It makes people uncomfortable. And sadly enough, for people like myself who have survived this, how do you even get a perspective on this, when you can't discuss it publicly, as if it's some sort of shame? I don't carry the shame of being a victim of child sexual abuse. Why? Because it wasn't my fault. This is clearly not my fault. This was something that somebody chose to do to me and against my will. So why would I take the guilt on from that, or the shame, or anything else? No, it's not my shame. The shame really goes to the abuser, because it's shame on the abuser, not on me. We need to talk about this stuff, and it needs to get out in the open. There are a lot of great people out there doing a lot of great work, though, I'm telling you. Like, if you just look around, there's so many great groups doing awesome, awesome things. And you can just type into your browser, child sexual abuse prevention. It'll bring you up all kinds of websites with great work being done, including the Innocence Revolution, to stop child sexual abuse, right? Get involved. Find out, first of all, how to protect the children that are in your life, and then make sure that their risk of being abused sexually is minimized, right? You want to completely minimize it, but I don't know if that's even possible. But you want to make sure that you do everything in your power to make sure that they are protected, because children are pretty much, as far as I'm concerned, they're pretty much helpless. I mean, they're out here in a world full of sick people, and what are they going to do? How are they going to protect themselves? From perpetrators who would sexually abuse them in whatever way. It's really discouraging to think that, you can't really trust your children or anybody else's child with anybody, It's like you have to become aware of the fact that there are so many people out there who have been sexually abused and who will never ever come forward and say anything because the stigma surrounding it, and also they might be feeling the shame, the guilt, or whatever it is they're feeling, or it could be that the abuser is still living and they don't want to cause problems because it could backfire on them, and it could be because the abuser may threaten them or do something to cause them more grief and more distress. It's a huge issue. It just goes on and on and on. And I mean, this has got to stop. Like, when are we going to say enough is enough worldwide? It's not just North America, not just Canada, not just Mexico, not just, Western Europe. We're talking worldwide. When is this going to stop? I mean, in some countries, it's just perfectly okay. Just depends on what part of the world you live in. See, at least over here in North America, we have some sense of what is right and wrong. It's a matter now of getting people to treat children with dignity, the dignity that they deserve, and with respect, and treat them as human beings with rights. And child sexual abuse is a crime. I just hope everybody knows this. Child abuse, period, is a crime. All child abuse is a crime. And, it depends on what state you live in, depending on what state you live in, to what will be punishable by law and what will just get you a little fine and a little slap on the wrist, or what will get you completely busted and your children taken away. But in what province? I think the provinces are probably a little different too. But they're all at least trying, right? But there's places in the world right now where they're not even trying. It's just perfectly allowed. You can do whatever you want, Children just suffer and die, or live and suffer, and nothing's done. Nothing's done about it. And I mean, we see so many cases like that just over here in North America. And phone calls were made to the authorities, and nothing was done. In the meantime, well, who's looking out for these children? Who's going to do it? Who's looking out for these children? This is just absolutely pathetic and wrong. And then there's a whole set of society that says, oh, how dare you take my children away? Well, what were you doing to your kids? That's what I want to know. Because they don't even remove kids that are being abused. So to see a child removed from a home, what were you doing to that child? Because we know that children are not removed from the home. That's why they're dying, right? There's phone calls made to CPS and all these other agencies and whatnot. You see this in the paper all the time, in the headlines there on the news and wherever you get your news, that the reports are made and they don't investigate, and the child ends up dead, or the children. And so we know that they're not investigating and removing all children. So there's a lot of people out there claiming that, they took away my children, and what was going on? I can't see them take. Maybe I'm sure there's the odd case where children are removed in error, but I don't think it's all, right? I don't think it's every single one. I know in my case where we were not removed from the home, and it was back in the 60s, and my parents were allowed to continue to do whatever they wanted to do to us. Because the rules were just so loosey-goosey, do whatever you want. Even though they were busted and brought up on charges, it's really something. It's like, well, unless a child's life is being threatened, they stay in the home. I know other survivors of child sexual abuse who around the world whose perpetrator was actually allowed to stay in the home. They were going to have to go to counseling, even though they sexually abused this person. And this person's abuser was allowed to stay in the home. Did you know that that's actually the case? That's more the norm than not. That the abuser will be allowed to remain in the home and possibly abuse again. Because all they're going to have to do is go to counseling, a few counseling sessions. Well, guess what? Nothing's changed since the 60s, obviously, because that's what the courts told my parents. When my parents went to court and they threatened to take us away from our home, and remove us from our home and take us away from our parents, all 7 of us. Well, actually, there was 5 left in the home. They actually made a stipulation saying, well, if you go and you get counseling, then we'll let you keep your children. Well, who is going to monitor that? You know, it's sort of the same thing today when child sexual abusers are allowed to remain around the child. Who's going to monitor that? Who's going to make sure that these abusers are not going to continue to abuse these children, whoever they are, right? Whoever these abusers are, whether it's a close family member or even more distant relative, right, or somebody living in the home. This is wrong. It's all wrong. Child abuse is a crime, and it needs to be handled and treated as such. It's a crime, and it needs to be punished by law. And there shouldn't be, a few months of counseling, there you go, don't do it again. Because if you check the stats and the statistics, most, maybe not all, because we can't just be black and white about this, there's always going to be some that will not do it again and will get better. We've heard cases about, see cases like that. The majority will do it again and admit to it, that it's a severe problem that they have, that they can't stop. Now that is so incredibly wrong, that these people have more rights than the children do. This makes me sick. That's why I fight for human rights, because this is incredibly wrong. And, where is society's heart? Where is society's thinking on this stuff? They generally want to protect the abusers. Why? Because the abusers are normally adults, and they have a relationship with the adult, not the child. Who has a relationship outside of the parents' realm, really, or other siblings? Who has a relationship with that child? Nobody. So these children and these individual children and siblings and whatnot, if they're being abused, who's got a relationship with them outside of the parents? No one. That's why the world wants to protect the abusers, because they don't want their best friend Joe to go to prison because he beat his children half to death or raped his daughter. Now this is incredibly wrong. It's wrong, and it will never be right. And I'm telling you, people need to get a grip. My parents were allowed to do what they did because they had friends who did not care about the children. They cared about my parents, because my mom, after all, baked cookies. People would say, "Oh, isn't your mom great? She makes all these wonderful cookies and potato salad for the block parties on the weekends, and for the picnics in the mountains. And she makes rolls and muffins, and she just bakes all this goods, and she comes over and plays cards at our house." So these other adults that befriended my parents did not care what they were doing to their children, us, because they didn't have a relationship with us. See? Because it's all about who's going to bring the steaks to the barbecue next summer. And if it's Uncle Joe and he's in prison because he abused his children, well, they don't want to lose Uncle Joe, because Uncle Joe is the barbecue man with the beer. I'm just saying, Aunt Jane, right? Grandma Mabel, right? I mean, it's generally family members who do these horrific things to their children, but there is the odd occasion where it's a daycare, babysitter, neighbor, getting a hold of a child. But for the most part, the majority, or even an after-school coach, which is a big problem. But, it's generally somebody the child knows very well and who has access to this child or to these children. And it's got to stop. Why people care more for the abusers than they do for the children is beyond me. And I hear people every day in my walk, in my journey, saying, "Oh, I hate children. I just hate kids, and I would never have any." And it's like, well, thank God. Thank God. Because if that's how you feel towards children, then you shouldn't even be allowed to be around them, as far as I'm concerned. My sister hated children, too, and she abused her 2 sons. And my sister grew up in the same home I did. We were all abused, right? It's just a cycle, passing it on down. So, people just need to watch what they're doing and stop abusing children. It just makes me so incredibly sick and wrong. It's not rocket science, man. It's not rocket science. It's human illness, sickness of the mind, sickness of the heart, sickness of the soul. It's pure evil is what it is. And people are evil. That's all there is to it. So nobody wants to fight against this, but we have to. Because these little children who have died and gone on, as far as I'm concerned, their little voices are crying out from the grave, man. And these little kids that are dying, that are going to die tonight, their little voices are shrieking out worldwide. And even these teenagers who are going to be killed by their family members, somebody. It's not all just about small children and babies. I mean, there's younger children, too. It's not just all about babies and really small children. I mean, teens are killed by their parents, too, and other people, but a lot of times by their parents. But, it's just so incredibly wrong that there's so many ignorant people popping out babies, right, and popping out children, and then having these children and not having the wherewithal and a strong psyche to be able to handle it, to be a good parent. And there's so many people that are very sick and twisted in their parenting skills, and they really, I don't know, like what do you do with a world full of sick people, right? But it's true. It's the honest to God's truth. You may as well just say it. Nobody wants to tell the truth. That's why nobody wants to hear the truth, and that's why nobody wants to stop child abuse, because they can't be bothered. Because they just want to watch TV or do whatever they're going to do. Because they don't care. Because it doesn't affect them, right? Well, if you had somebody do something to you that you didn't like, you certainly would be crying out about it, and you certainly would be wishing that somebody would get you some help. So I say that all these people that abuse children the same should be done to them. Put them in a room, do whatever was done that they did to those children, and do it to them and see how they like it. But don't get them any help. Just let them suffer on for the same length of time that they made that child suffer. That's what I think is their due justice, as far as I'm concerned. But since we can't do that, well, no, because the perpetrator of the crime has much more rights than the victim, as usual. Like, what's wrong with this picture and what's wrong with this society? What's wrong with this world? It's the same old thing that's always been wrong with it. People are evil. And these evil people that are out here doing these things to children need to be stopped. And since right now in our society, the law is just about the only place that we can get, to do anything about this, first of all, we need to learn that child abuse is a crime, that it needs to be reported as a crime, it needs to be documented as a crime, and it needs to be prosecuted as a crime. And, then there needs to become a level of education, among people who work with children, people who have access to children, people who are around children, and even parents, especially parents. Because there's a lot of parents out there that think, oh, this would never happen to my child. You want to bet? There's some really sick people out there, I tell you. And you never know when your child's going to be around one of those sick people. They will pass themselves off as really cool people that live next door. Really cool people that will coach your children after school in sports. Girl Scout leaders, Boy Scout leaders, you name it. Now, I'm not saying anything against the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. I'm just saying after school activities are a big issue. Who are these people? And have they been screened? Have they been properly screened for security reasons, for past offenses and stuff like that? There's so many people that don't realize that, you need to have security background checks on everybody that's going to be around your child. Sadly enough, but you do. Why? Because that's where the child, especially child sexual predators, try to get jobs that are around children. Janitors at schools. I'm not putting down janitors or saying that janitors are predators. I'm saying that they will use any excuse to get a job that will get them closer to children. So who would these people be? Daycare people? Anybody like that. And everybody, when you think about it, is suspect. And they should all have clearance checks. They should all have major background clearance checks done to make sure that they don't have a past record of any type of abuse towards a child. Right? It's a serious issue because if people were a little bit more aware that those stats that they show, the federal government and whatnot who do these studies, that it's pretty much like 1 in 5 to 7 boys and 1 in 3 to 4 girls who will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18 is true. Are you one of the 3 girls or one of the 6 to 7 boys? Well, I am. And so it's really important to realize that there are a lot of people out here who have been victimized. So who was the perpetrators? For every victim, there's a perpetrator. For every victim, there's somebody out there who has done these heinous acts and who may have gone unpunished many times and could be lurking around waiting to get a hold of another child. Do you want it to be yours? No, you don't. So, or anybody else's for that matter, right? So we need to become aware, get the information, go to this website, The Innocence Revolution, and check it out, a global day to end child sexual abuse. They have all kinds of information there. They first of all talk about who they are, the mission statement, and also the stats, CSA stats, child sexual abuse stats, what parents, caregivers can do, what are some of the signs of childhood sexual abuse. They have under the information tab, what is child sexual abuse, right? You can join the team, volunteer opportunities and whatnot. You can contact them, media inquiries. They have a blog. You can donate to the cause, the Innocence Revolution, a global day to end child sexual abuse. It's April. It's coming up on April 14th, 2013. And April 14th is a Sunday. And so it's a worldwide event. Get in on it and, get involved, whatever you can do. We can all do something. And, it's just a matter of giving a little bit of our time. And some people don't have time, so they have money, so they give money. Some people don't have money, so they give time. Whatever you have, just get involved. And if it just means protecting your children from that day forward, saying, you know what, from that day forward, I'm going to learn the signs and symptoms, and I'm going to watch out for all the children around me. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's where it starts. That's where it has to ultimately end, right? Somebody 20,000 miles can't protect your child, but you can, and the people that are around them. So, get the information and get the facts and learn how to protect your children and other children from abuse of any type, but especially, and because the Innocence Revolution is about child sexual abuse, learn how to protect them from child sexual abuse, So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the show next Saturday with Tom Scales, and it's going to be a great privilege, like I said. I hope that you'll tune in. I wish I could do a longer show, but I don't have a paid account here on Blog Talk Radio anymore. I can only do half-hour shows because I had to go down to a free account, right? But half an hour is a great opportunity to hear from Mr. Scales and hear what he has to say about the Innocence Revolution and what their plans are for the future and about this major event happening on April 14th, 2013. So I hope you will tune in. And you can phone in. Like I said, I will be taking calls that day, and also at least halfway through, we'll probably start about 15 minutes into it so that he can have a chance to talk first and take a few phone calls if you want to phone in. And you can also hang out in the chat room because I will have the chat room open. So, take care, everybody, and thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for caring. And, I know a lot of people who listen to my shows are already doing a lot of great work and already in the this machine to stop abuse, right? But I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to my shows, like I said, and I hope to be able to make more time to listen to your shows as well. I know there's a lot of people on Blog Talk Radio that tune into my shows that have shows of their own, and I need to take the time to tune into your shows as well. So have a great night, everybody, and we'll be talking to you tomorrow night. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.